Welcome back to another episode of Blueprints to Punch List. I'm Dave, and I got my co-host today, Ken. How's it going?
It's going. You know, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Right now, it's going good.
All right, cool. We're staying above water, coming up for air. And hey, listen, we just wanted to do an episode on job site safety. We've covered a lot of topics here. Some of these shorter episodes where we're talking about various topics around commercial construction, the real estate side of it, the design, the engineering. Today, it's taking it back to actual job site safety, where the implications of keeping a safe job site is always our foremost importance. We want everybody to go home in one piece without any injuries at the end of the day. Timelines, budgets, if they can get blown and have go sideways. We want to see everybody who shows up to our job sites going home safely. So today, we again wanted to just talk about a couple of topics around that. What are some of the, just kind of some of those, how to create the safer environments, OSHA regulations, and some of the implications. So, Ken, have you had any recent stories where maybe things didn't go the way that, didn't have any kind of a safety issues that come to mind?
Yeah, nothing as of late that comes to mind. Obviously that can mean some good things. I'd like to think that, we're having the communication and making sure, nothing that can come to mind. I did hear a story, I don't know, supposedly somebody maybe took a saw to their hand on a job. That's the one thing that comes to my mind as of late, at least. But I think you may know more about that one than me.
Yeah, demo. It was during demo on a recent project that we just started, and we're taking down this stucco ceiling on like a breezeway of a shopping plaza, and there was some supports that had been loosened up on the other end of that ceiling. So as they were coming out, the guy was standing on a ladder, kind of holding up and cutting down the final piece of that ceiling, and he had cut a piece of that ceiling off, and then the whole thing just gave weight and fell. And in a reactionary, not thinking, he was holding an electric saw, and he just swung it down and ended up trying to catch it with his other hand. And so he ended up getting his whole hand cut up, not cut off, thankfully, cut up, where he did have to go and see a doctor and get stitches done, get stitches put in. But, a lot of this stuff can be prevented. And those are the things that we want to talk about, is how do we, as project managers and dealing with our superintendents, dealing with our subs, what are some of those things that we can do from our perspective to make sure that, having a record like you're having is not have any kind of incidents? What are, what's some of the initial things that come to mind when it comes to job site safety for you?
Yeah. So, our first line of defense obviously is, well, I guess trusting the folks that we bring on to complete these projects, right? That they're going to come out, they're professional, complete their work in a safe manner, and then secondary to that, not too far behind, right, is the superintendents we have on site, making sure that they have the knowledge to be able to identify risks, identify issues, hopefully before we have incidents and injuries, right? To be able to maintain that safe job site. And I think for us, the way in which we do that is our safety program, right? Weekly discussions on various topics, rolling through, what takes place, what needs to take place in certain situations, what risks can be out there, and trying to stay ahead of the curve and really kind of try and head those off before they happen. Obviously, things happen, right? You can be as safe as you want, and there's a lot of variables involved in what we do on a daily basis. So things do happen, at which point the proper procedures need to take place, and the knowledge of those are imperative, both from a safety perspective and a liability perspective, all the way around.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the weekly safety meetings that we hold, because I think that's where it starts. Is you have to have the safety conscious approach to every project, no matter how small or big. The weekly meetings that we hold, a lot of time, most of them are on our team's calls, but then we do ask our superintendents to take what they're learning back to the field, have a quick meeting with the subs, with the people on site, and we do this weekly, not because it's something fun and enjoyable, but it is part of the process. We continually have to remind people, unfortunately, that keeping their safety is our number one priority, and you have to do that weekly, otherwise people will forget. And when it comes to job site safety, it's not always just when you're in the middle of demo that issues can come up. I mean, we build in Florida. It's 95 degrees here already in early May, and that translates to job sites where they don't have air conditioning, so the heat adds to that element. How do we make sure people don't overheat? You see people walking around with headphones in all the time. It used to be just radios on job sites. Now everybody has their headphones. So if something happens, they might not hear that, hey, watch out, there's something, or heads up that we're coming through. Those are the things that when you say superintendent, having that that safety mindset to look out for the little things that would otherwise get missed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the things that, seemingly are not, don't have the large implications, right? Like to your point, headphones, just headphones, right? But if you don't hear an audible alarm or notification that there's heavy equipment backing up in your area, like that's what that stuff that is there for, to let everybody know around you that it's coming, because whoever's operating it may or may not be able to see. And to have headphones in, you put yourself at risk, you put the project at risk. First and foremost in this whole thing is safety, right? People's lives, but there's many other implications that come along with that.
Yeah, and OSHA is one of the governing bodies for this around our industry, and that sets the standard for safety, and they can pretty much show up to your job site whenever unannounced. It doesn't happen frequently enough, probably, but talk to me a little bit about around your thoughts around OSHA standards, what it is, why it's important.
Yeah, and to clarify the frequency of which OSHA is going to visit your job site, right? For us, where we typically operate, right, in the TI build outs, the smaller ground up stuff, that we see OSHA much less frequently than those folks that are building some of your larger projects, that are more in the spotlight, if you will. All right, but the reality of it is, at any given point in time, OSHA can come on your project, on your job site, no matter what you're doing, no matter what the size is, and assess safety. And trust me, they know the book inside and out, and they know what to look for, and they know what you should and shouldn't be doing. And unfortunately, oftentimes, if you don't have somebody on site that is paying attention to that stuff, almost always you can find something that you are in violation of. It's just the nature of the beast. There are a lot of regulations out there. They're out there for a reason. Some can seem silly, but most of them are there because somebody learned the hard way that you shouldn't do something in that manner, right? But the implications can be huge. I mean, you can go to the extent of jail time, heavy fines that would sink a lot of, certainly small, medium-sized businesses. Their ability to penalize is almost, there's almost no extent to it, right? Depending on what the violation is and how you approach it and how you address it and how you correct it. even to the extent of, revoking your license, fines, jail time, you name it.
Yeah, and I mean those are certainly the extreme examples, but it can just have the implications of shutting down a job site,
Sure.
to reassess and make sure that you know as the contractor you address the safety items if they're egregious. So that can have scheduling impact, cost impact. Doesn't look good in the eye of the customer. So there's all these little things that will come back to it if we're not conscious of that. And that again, I think as superintendents in the field leading these jobs, it is their responsibility to take safety seriously. And actually not just superintendents, but everyone on the team to make sure that it's not just an afterthought, but because again, you're talking about people's lives. You're around heavy equipment, sharp, dangerous environments that are not normal for, and you have to be. I mean, even if as simple as like having uh, just a piece of metal framing that's sticking out of the ceiling as. You're not looking up. You're looking at your phone, walking around. You don't have a hard hat on. You walk into that, and all of a sudden, you got a cut on your head, you're poking your eye, and just there's unlimited ways to get hurt on a construction site. So yeah, when you say OSHA is an expert at picking out what is and isn't, and yeah, extension cords, ladders, making sure you have the right type of material for the ladders. So all these things are important, and again, safety, that's where it all starts. So we definitely stress that as a company, and yeah, it's so crucial to projects that I don't think it gets talked about enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you've spent time on site, I've spent my days on site, right? And we're involved, so we know, right? A lot of this stuff, a lot of folks like to look at it or classify it as silly. I do think for the most part, folks respect it, but they'll decide what's reasonable to abide by and what's not reasonable to abide by, right? And I encourage folks to go in with the understanding that it's all there for a reason. And while some may seem silly, right, the implications can be big.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we have on today's safety topic. I'd love to hear if you have a great story on just safety, or what your thoughts are around making sure construction sites are staying safe. And we're here as a contractor. We've worked with the healthcare clients primarily. So if you do have a need, or if you do have a question around healthcare related projects, feel free to reach out to us. Subscribe and like our channels, and we'll see you on the next video.